Elio guys, and welcome back. Hopefully everyone's doing well, and in today's video we're finally going to be covering some of the Void Dungeon here. Now do take this video more so as an introduction. I'm not going to go into like high level detail about each specific Balzac, which is the boss for the Void Dungeon, but it's just going to be a broad overview of the different elements, some of the Astromon that I would recommend using at this point in time, and also how the lovely crystals work from the Void Dungeon. So let's go ahead and pop over there first and get this party started. First, let's go ahead and slide over here to the Void Dungeon. I've done a couple runs already, and as I stated before, there's multiple different versions of them, which I will definitely cover here in the meantime. Fire, water, wood, light, and dark, that's basically universal. We have that for the golems, we have that for colossus, we have that for titans, all the good stuff here. So starting off with the fire one, you can come over here. I haven't really progressed this on this account, but I have on my secondary account. But they do have this lovely strategy tab, which kind of recommends what you should use, and some of it's accurate and some of it's not, at least in my opinion. But for the fire version of Balzac, I would definitely recommend having Courageous Strikers. I didn't get too far on it on Casualio, but Courageous Strikers seem to be good to go, at least for the earlier part of it. Maybe Lethal Strikers can be available later on or useful for him, but at this point in time, I would definitely recommend the Courageous Strikers. I haven't really pushed it on this account, as I stated though before, but from my analysis so far, obviously if you use Elemental Advantage, since this fire version exists, I would prefer that you bring in like a water one. If you have Balrona, Acers, etc. like that. Usually I've been running in here just in general with Kira's, but depending on application or depending on which element, she may end up slowing you down, even though she's quite a safe bet right there. Moving on to the water one though, clicking up here too, we have the strategy, which is great. Water, of course, you can use Lethal Strikers. I think it's the wood one where Courageous Strikers or Lethal Strikers can go hard, really depending on which one that you're using here. Once again, I haven't really went too ham on this one, but the Casualio account has made progress on this one too, of just testing out the waters, of seeing which one you should hopefully be going for first. Now, you may have different Astromon than me, so your mileage may vary, but heading off here to the wood one too. This one, in my opinion, if we're going to go with RGB, seems to be the most flexible. Let me hit strategy right here. While they do recommend Lethal Strike, I was talking with It's SG over there on the Discord, so if you guys haven't joined the Discord, feel free to do that. And also, subscribe by the way, but I was talking with him on Discord, and Lethal Strike and Courageous Strike, at least at the very early stages, like my Fire Shinobi, hits Balzac like a butt cheek on a stick, dude. Like, I'm talking up to stage 3. I think I've went past that on Casualio just yet, but up to stage 3 has been interesting because it seems like maybe his HP or defense pool hasn't shifted enough to make a big impact of who you should use near the end of the stages, because these stages do contain 6 in total. But up to stage 3, like Shinobi and even freaking Fire Sun Wukong was doing a lot more damage than my Jian Wuchi. So that may need more testing. And by the way, if you guys have made any progress on the RGB elements of him, feel free to leave that in the comments below, because that could also be incorporated into a future video right here. So these are the RGBs, and I haven't covered the exclusive skills yet because I'm kind of trying to, you know, blow through this as more so of an introduction than a whole bunch of detail here. But then we have light, which light, I'm currently on stage 4 and I could go further possibly, but the issue of light is, let me go ahead and go up in here. So wow, look at that, I actually have team set up. The issue of light is where, especially once you get in later stages of the Void Dungeon, is where these exclusive skills really come into play, because depending on your timing and depending on which one that you're fighting, like light for example, I feel like is a great contender for like nuking, possibly, especially in the earlier stages. It's not too bad, but once you get in these later stages, the gameplay or the play of the game seems to be go ahead, and if you're doing one that's more offensive based and not sap based or Courageous Strike, just straight up Lethal Strike, it seems to me like you would go ahead and go over here to the exclusive skill. Obviously you would pick on maybe like the Void Strike to try and increase the damage of your Astromon on your team, and depending on which ad left or right of the minions that is, which is what I'm calling ads, you try to focus on them and burst them down first before they, number one, power up Balzac and make things a lot more spicier than they need to be. That seems to be the tactic overall, and I've only used like the attack power and SP so far. I think resistance down could be useful too. These guys are just a little bit too weak in my opinion. If you're going to do this, I would just pay the money and get as powerful of buffs as possible. But that seems to be the case for the light one, where it's just a DPS race. You want this to be over as quickly as possible, so having a lot of dark lethal strikers would definitely be the play of the game here. I do have Dark Miho, there's Dark Progna, also freaking Dark Ice Cream Boy, I forgot his name already. But you know, there's some Gianruchis mixed up in there too. Not very advantageous, but I was just using what I have here. Now, I haven't cleared stage 5 yet because I was testing some stuff here. But in my opinion, you know, and spoiler alert, this would probably be the first video out of the Void Dungeon elements. The dark one seems to be the most viable, at least in my opinion, and I think also in its SG's opinion, because he's kind of come up with like a way, not necessarily to cheese him, but kind of a way to cheese him at least at lower levels if you have those specific Astromon here. And I didn't mention the crystals over here before, but every time you clear the Void Dungeon, you'll end up getting these lovely guys right here, which is like the Void Crystals that go right below our slots for obviously our gems, trinkets, and those Void Crystals. But these other shards drop too, where you can modify the sub-properties of these crystals, and I'll show you guys an example of that a little bit later on into the video. But let's go and click on the dark version, and of course strategy is very important. Courageous Strike and Sap. Honestly, I haven't tested Courageous Strike yet. I feel like it may be, haven't tested it yet. I feel like Sap at least is the lazier way to go here. Essentially what happens here is if you have a whole bunch of sappers, this is a lot easier to do, which I feel like players at least naturally would have a handful of sappers just going with the game. Because you have golems where sap is very important. No matter which golem that you're doing, sap is always a key role. This to me kind of already builds itself, and it just feels the most natural for players to start off with, which is why he'll get his own video here. But my suggestion for this stage 2 is the left minion, especially after about stage 4. It's very difficult to kind of auto through him. So the left minion, 100% recommend an SP Siphoner and at least one slot over here to kind of mitigate him casting immunity on himself, the other minion, and Balzac, which makes things problematic because then essentially sap won't stick. So I don't want to give away any more spoilers because this is more so of an introduction of what happens here. So I won't be going into gameplay in this video because, I mean, look at that. I'm already like, what, almost 10 minutes in without editing anything here. But just to give you guys a taste of what it's like. Outside of that though, let's go ahead and back up and I'll show you guys essentially how to equip this stuff on your mons once you clear out these stages, especially like the first 2 stages. I think if you have fairly gemmed up Astromons, even with basic trinkets and enhancements, you should have no problems like plowing through that here. But once you get up higher in the stages, things do get a little bit spicy. Alright, next up, let's go ahead and talk about the Void Crystals here. So if you come over here to your Astromon, I'm going to be using the Steedler as an example because he does have double sap, which, spoiler alert, for the Dark Dungeon is super useful here. But coming over here to the Crystal tab of the UI, we can see multiple crystal types right here, and unfortunately these crystal types are kind of bound to whatever that Astromon is. So Steedler happens to be a tank type. Congratulations, we can only equip tank types of the Void Crystals upon him. Same thing for your attackers, defenders, recovery, balance, etc. So it does take some thought process out of it because it's like I have to get this specific drop to get things equipped here. So keep in mind of what Astromon that you're using. Some of these sets seem a little bit more useful than others, but of course you do get lovely substats added to your Astromon in general, which is good for min and maxing. And more importantly, I think the set is number one, the most important in this case, especially if you're farming out the lower version of this dungeon just because you don't have access to maybe stronger mons, you're in the process of building up mons, or you need that set to kind of help you progress further. Because it definitely seems like for about stage 4, 5, and 6, I do recall them mentioning that they may tweak stages 4 and 5, but for 5 and 6, having a full set is definitely going to be useful, even if your subsets are trash, just because of those set effects. So my advice is, regardless of which one that you start on, go ahead and farm it at least to the highest level that you can. Get some sets going up here, equip them, and get those set effects. You don't have to enhance them or upgrade them at this point in time, but it's up to you. It doesn't really cost that much because, you know, I'm going to go over here. We're going to go ahead and pop this. Look at that. We now have plus 768 attack on Seedler, who doesn't even need attack. But the real spice, as I would like to say here, is we're going to go and equip this. We'll replace that because I do want to keep these for now because I'm getting shards in. But the real spice with these guys has to be the crafting right here. So crafting is very important. As we see, there's 4 different substats on this high void crystal, and it's empty. Normally when we enhance things for gems, it kind of rolls into these substats right here, but this one's kind of like a fusion in between gems and also enhancements. This is where the money's at. Now, I don't think I have a list of all the sub properties that we can get. It would be cool if the game included that information right here, but unfortunately it is what it is. Maybe I'm wrong though. No, it is just sub properties. Yeah, unfortunate. Very unfortunate, but we can see that low has 2 substats, mid has 3, and then high has 4, which is why I recommend maybe going hard on mid and preferably high, but use what you can use at this point in time. But anyways, with crafting, as you clear out this dungeon, you end up getting these shards dropped, and you can use these shards to enhance or add some properties to your void crystals. This is just like enhancing your Astromon. Instead of essence though, you just need the lovely void shards. So I'm going to go ahead and hit craft right here to show you guys some science and see what it rolls into. So he ended up with defense and attack. Not super important for the attack. Defense, I think I would prefer maybe a different substat on that, so I could craft right here again. But if you notice, we can actually lock in those substats. So if you get a really good roll that you want to keep, this is a good way of min-maxing these Astromon and kind of picking and choosing what you specifically need. For Seedler's case, if I was going to go ham and use him forever, I would obviously kind of focus more so on a defensive build. But if I was using someone more offensively, there's like what rolls into, I think, crit damage and crit rate. I think there's like 11.3% for crit rate. If I get rolls into my void crystals with crit rate, and I have that all across the entire set, there's a chance I could be more flexible with, you know, my Gems of Ruin. I don't need as much crit rate overall. I could drop off that crit rate enhancement on my Astromon. Makes life a hell of a lot easier in terms of getting that crit rate up especially, and crit damage. There's also stuff like, I think, resist down or negative resist, where I do believe it kind of lowers the resist of the Astromon that you're attacking if that specific Astromon that you have with the Void Crystal equipped attacks them. It doesn't work for the whole party, but for that specific Astromon. So things could get spicy right here. But so far with these crystals, especially because the shards are very valuable at this point in time until you get sets going and we're hitting those stages hard, I would recommend just doing the 1 craft. I would not go to 2 and 3, because if you see this lock-in right here, you're doing 3 and it has to refresh. Good gosh. That is going to get ate up super quick. So for now, I would focus on maybe 1 of the void dungeons for Balzac. Right now, I would prefer if you focused on dark, but hey, if you got other ones that you're tearing up, feel free to do that. Focus on 1, get sets going for your specific party of all 12 members. Obviously, piece it out here, give some to your tank or give some to your healer. Make sure you give it to the attackers right there to get, you know, to push a little bit more damage out of them. And then once those sets are done, come back after that and only apply maybe 1 or 2 substats depending on how much it costs with the crafting. I would not go up to 3 crystals or 3 shards in order to craft these crystals with substats at this point in time, because things may change, and min-maxing is great, but if you're just starting out here, we want to have a whole bunch of resources available first before we go ham with that. But at this point in time, that's pretty much all that I have, you guys. I mean, this dungeon literally came out, I think, like last week, middle of last week. So it's been maybe a week or 2 max that this dungeon has been out. Sorry to go ahead and rant on this video, though. Hopefully this information helps. Once again, this is kind of an introduction, and obviously my next follow-up video will be a higher focus on the Dark One specifically, but that's pretty much all that I have. If you guys have any more suggestions or kind of better information or tips to leave in a video, because other people of course watch, feel free to leave that in the comments below. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one, because, you know, Void Dungeon is a little bit interesting, or shall I say, more interesting than what we've gotten here thus far.